Holy crap! My life turned upside down in one heart-stopping second. I'm Olivia Reed, a 32-year-old graphic designer hustling in Austin, Texas, and I thought I'd finally made it until a late-night text blew my world apart. It was past midnight on a wild Friday, June 13th, 2025, and I was crashed on my couch scrolling through my phone after a grueling design deadline when, bam, a lawyer's message pinged in about my late dad's estate. My jaw hit the floor as I read the words, "The will was forged, I'm cut out, and my little brother Ethan's the sole heir." My mom, Diane, faked her love to steal my inheritance right out from under me. I felt my chest tighten, my hands shaking as I stared at that screen, the room spinning like I'd been sucker punched by my own family. Stick with me, because this family drama's about to get wilder than you can imagine. Growing up in Boise, Idaho, I was the eldest, the one who worked her butt off while mom poured everything into Ethan after dad passed. I waitressed nights, designed logos by day, and clawed my way through college to build a freelance gig that landed me this Austin condo. I was proud, damn proud. But deep down, I always felt like the backup plan, chasing her approval while Ethan skated by on her cash. That text wasn't just a shock, it was a gut punch, a betrayal that hit harder because it came from the woman who raised me. I thought of Dad's quiet pride, gone too soon, and now this? My mind raced. How could she do this? What else had she hidden? The anger bubbled up, mixing with a sickening grief, but I knew I couldn't just sit there. This wasn't the end. It was the start of a fight I never saw coming. So tell me, what would you do if your own mom stabbed you in the back like this? Hang tight, because the twists are just heating up. That late-night text about the forged will still echoed in my mind as I woke to the Austin dawn, but let's rewind to the grind that shaped me. My days are a rush of sketching bold logos for startups, sipping lattes at packed coffee joints, and pulling all-nighters to nail client deadlines. A life I stitched together with sheer determination. Growing up in Boise's middle-class maze, I was the eldest, always the one mom leaned on, while my younger brother Ethan basked in her glow after dad passed. I waitressed nights, designed logos by day, and clawed my way through college to launch a freelance design business that earned me a snug condo in this eclectic city. I thrive on the vibe, the twang of live music on 6th Street, the sizzle of food truck tacos, the freedom to call my own shots. But beneath that buzz, a nagging tension festers. Mom's endless praise for Ethan's half-baked dreams and her sidelong jabs at my hustle hint at a rift, a knot tightening with every Boise visit where my hard work fades into the shadows. Life in Boise was a mix of small-town charm and unspoken pressure. Our house was a modest split level with a creaky porch and a yard where Dad's old grill rusted, a place Mom, Diane Reed, kept spotless after his death. With Dad gone, her focus zeroed in on Ethan, 2 years my junior, who could do no wrong in her eyes. I didn't resent it at first. I dove into school, acing art projects, and worked weekends at a diner to stash cash for college. By 18, I was juggling 3 jobs, waitress, tutor, and cashier, pushing through Boise State with no safety net. Landing my first design gig at 23 felt like hitting the jackpot. I stood in my cramped dorm, contract in hand, heart pounding with pride. That hustle carried me to Austin, where I built a business from scratch, my condo a reward for every late-night sketch and client pitch. My Austin life is my sanctuary. I love the city's pulse, the clatter of the urban scene, the hum of creative energy, the thrill of a deal closed. I'd crash on my couch after a long day, doodling new ideas, dreaming of a studio space to expand my brand. Every paycheck was a badge of honor, a step toward independence I'd fought for. But that independence came with a cost. Family trips to Boise were a tightrope walk. Ethan's latest flop, some music app or gym membership, always stole the show, while Mom nodded like he was a genius. I tried to share a design win, like landing a tech startup logo, and she'd hum, then pivot to Ethan's potential. The asks followed fast. "Olivia, can you cover his rent?" Or, "He needs a loan for a new idea." And I'd wire the cash, my savings shrinking, telling myself it was love. But each time, a flicker of frustration sparked. Why was I the one propping him up? Why did my grind feel invisible? The tension hit a peak during a Boise Thanksgiving. I brought a homemade pecan pie, hoping to bridge the gap, the house warm with Mom's crystal glasses and the scent of turkey. Ethan rolled in late, bragging about a real estate deal that screamed scam, and Mom hung on his every word. I mentioned a big client contract, but she cut me off for him, leaving my pie untouched. Later, clearing dishes, I overheard her tell my aunt, "Olivia's our safety net. She'll come through." The words sliced deep, and I forced a smile when she caught my eye, her "just kidding" ringing hollow. I drove back to Austin, tears streaking my face, the highway a blur, vowing to set boundaries. But I didn't. I kept giving, kept chasing her love, tying knots I couldn't see. Those moments shaped a world where I was the backbone, not the daughter. Mom leaned on my hustle, my success, while Ethan's failures were her obsession. I thought I was proving my worth, but I was feeding a dynamic that would lead to her betrayal. My Austin grind, my business, my space was my triumph, built from nothing, but it didn't shield me from the family shadow I couldn't escape. The knot tightens here, a weight I'd shoved aside, but it starts to fray with that text's truth. I'd been blind, thinking love meant sacrifice, but Mom's favoritism was a warning I missed. How do you break free when your own mom dims your light? How do you rise when family love feels like a lie? Stick with me. The fight I sparked next was a turning point that changed everything. A single overheard whisper can ignite a fire you never saw coming. As I sat in my Austin condo, that late-night text about the forged will still burning in my mind, I realized the betrayal wasn't a sudden strike. It had been brewing in the toxic undercurrents of my family for years. My mom, Diane Reed, turned our Boise home into a stage where my younger brother Ethan was the star, while I was relegated to the wings, pressured to prop him up after Dad's death. Those moments I dismissed as quirks were knots tightening toward a deception I couldn't yet grasp. Let me take you back to where it all started, where her favoritism and my sacrifices planted the seeds for a trap that would explode into my life. Our Boise suburb was a patchwork of ranch houses, where Mom's manicured flower beds and Dad's old grill defined our quiet existence. After Dad, a kind accountant, passed when I was 20, Diane's grief morphed into an unshakable devotion to Ethan. At 30, Ethan was a dreamer with a string of flops, a music app that crashed, a gym membership he ditched, a consulting gig that went nowhere, yet Mom saw him as her legacy. She funneled Dad's pension into his whims, new cars, rent, cash for his latest harebrained scheme, while I was left to fend for myself. I didn't resent it at first. I dove into college, waitressing nights to cover tuition, sketching designs to hone my craft. But the imbalance cut deep, a quiet ache as her praise for Ethan drowned out my efforts, a knot forming with every sidelong glance. That favoritism was a relentless undercurrent. I remember a fall when I was 16, saving for a drawing tablet to fuel my design dreams. I raked leaves and walked dogs, hoping to catch Mom's eye, but Ethan, at 14, got a new skateboard for trying at basketball. She beamed, saying, "You're my little champ," while my savings sat untouched. I swallowed the sting, told myself it was no big deal, but cried into my pillow that night. I pushed harder, top grades, extra shifts, while Ethan coasted, earning a gaming console for his birthday. "You're so reliable, Olivia," Mom would say, like it was my duty to carry the load. Reliable. The word was a shackle, chaining me to their expectations. The pressure grew as my career took off. In Austin, my freelance design business thrived. Client pitches at hip cafes, late-night edits for major brands. But Boise visits were a pressure cooker. At a 4th of July barbecue, Mom cornered me by the cooler. "Ethan needs $2,500 for a new app. He's got potential." I paused, my savings earmarked for a studio upgrade. "I'm tight, Mom." Her smile faded. "You're doing so well, Olivia. Don't be selfish." Selfish? I'd paid his rent, his car insurance, his last phone bill. I caved, but the resentment smoldered. I started dodging her calls, citing work, but guilt tugged at me, a knot tightening with every concession. The demands went beyond money. They demanded my emotional labor. I get frantic late-night calls from Mom, panicked over Ethan's overdrafts or failed gigs, and I'd wire cash, calm her nerves, while my design wins, a logo for a tech firm, a magazine feature, went unnoticed. At a family reunion, I shared a big contract, but Mom shifted to Ethan's music career. I'd grin through the hurt, but each dismissal was a knot pulling me deeper into her orbit. I thought I was proving my worth, but I was feeding a dynamic where my success was her crutch. The clearest warning came at Dad's memorial, 6 months after his death. I'd brought a sketch of him, a tribute to his quiet support, but Ethan's speech about his future stole the focus. Later, stacking chairs, I overheard my aunt tell my mom, "Olivia's our family crutch, she'll always come through." The words sliced like a blade. I forced a laugh when she noticed, her "just kidding" ringing false. I drove back to Austin, tears streaking my face, vowing to draw a line, but I didn't. I kept giving, kept chasing a love that felt like a ghost. Those moments were knots, each one a step toward her betrayal. Mom leaned on my hustle, my achievements, while Ethan's failures were her passion. I thought I was building a life, proving my value, but I was enabling a trap I couldn't see. My Austin grind, my business, my space, was my fortress, but it didn't shield me from the poison in my family's roots. The knot tightens here, a burden I'd buried, but it starts to fray with that text's revelation. I was blind, thinking love meant sacrifice, but Mom's favoritism was a warning I missed. How do you trust a mom who used you? How do you rise when your family's love is a facade? Stick with me. The fight I ignited next was a turning point that reshaped my world. The lawyer's letter hit me like a freight train, its words slicing through the quiet of my Austin morning on June 13, 2025 at 9:45 a.m. The shock of that late-night text about Dad's forged will had barely settled, and now this, proof that my mom, Diane Reed, had altered his will to favor Ethan, my younger brother, with a signature that wasn't mine. Sitting at my kitchen counter, the hum of the coffee maker a distant drone, I felt the ground shift beneath me. This wasn't just a family spat. It was a betrayal that turned my stomach, a knot tightening my trust in the woman who raised me after Dad's death. But that knot began to fray as the truth sank in, sparking a fire I didn't know I had. Let me take you into that raw, heart-pounding moment when the mask fell and the fight for my future took root. The envelope was crisp, official, its weight heavier than any bill I'd ever held. I tore it open, my fingers trembling, and scanned the legal jargon until the truth leapt out. Dad's will, drafted after his passing, had been rewritten. My share, meant to include the family lake house in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, stripped away and handed to Ethan. My signature, scrawled to the bottom, was a cruel imitation, its curves too perfect to be mine. The realization crashed over me like a wave. Mom had done this, alone, twisting Dad's memory into her scheme. My chest tightened, a mix of disbelief and fury, as I pictured the lake house, its wooden dock where Dad taught me to fish, now lost to Ethan's carelessness. The air felt thick, the condo's warmth suddenly suffocating as I processed the depth of her deception. I dialed Mom, my pulse racing, needing to hear her side. She answered with her usual warmth, "Olivia, good morning, sweetie," a tone that made my skin crawl. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking, "I got a letter. The will's been changed. My name's forged, and Ethan's the heir. What's going on?" Silence hung heavy, then a nervous laugh, like she'd been caught with a hidden stash. "Oh, it's just a little adjustment, honey. I thought Ethan needed the stability more. You're so strong. You'll manage." Manage? The word was a slap across my face. "You forged my name," I pressed, my voice rising. Her reply was cold, clipped. "It was for the family, Olivia. Dad would have agreed. Ethan's the future." The future? I'd been the one holding us together, funding his flops while she rewrote Dad's wishes. I hung up, my hands trembling, and called Ethan, clinging to a sliver of hope he'd deny it. His voice was smug, almost bored. Mom said it was to give me a leg up, Liv. You don't need the lake house. You've got your Austin gig. A leg up? I paid his rent, his car loans, his endless debts while he leaned on her handouts. The call ended, and I sank onto the couch, the letter a damning weight in my lap. My financial security was on the line. The lake house was my inheritance, a buffer I'd counted on after years of overtime to build my design business. I'd sacrificed vacations, sleep, to stand tall, and now that foundation was crumbling under her lie. The grief was a tidal wave. Dad's gentle voice, his promise of the lake house, now tainted by her manipulation. I thought of his final days, his hand in mine, and wondered if she'd planned this even as he faded. Anger flared, hot and unyielding. How could she do this to me? I paced the living room, the city's distant buzz amplifying my rage. I'd given so much, money, time, love, thinking it was family duty, only to be blindsided. Mom's "for the family" excuse rang hollow, a justification for stealing my birthright. I wanted to drive to Boise, storm her house, demand why Ethan's failures outshone my efforts. But the fury twisted into a raw sorrow, an ache for the mom I'd known, the one who'd baked my cookies, who'd cried with me at Dad's funeral. Those memories felt like ghosts now, haunting me with their falseness. I curled up, tears streaming, the letter a crumpled symbol of her betrayal. Yet, amid the despair, a spark ignited. I thought of the girl who'd worked 3 jobs to graduate, who'd pitched designs to skeptics and won, who'd built a life from scratch. Mom had taken my trust, my inheritance, but she hadn't taken that fire. I wiped my eyes, my jaw set, and stared at the letter. This wasn't the end. They'd underestimated me, and that was their mistake. The knot of their deceit tightened, but it began to unravel, revealing a resolve I hadn't tapped. I wasn't her pawn anymore. I was Olivia Reed, and I was ready to fight for what Dad intended for me. The knot unravels here, but the battle's just beginning. I was blindsided, betrayed by the mom I loved, but that pain lit a fuse I couldn't ignore. How do you face a mother who's stolen your legacy? How do you stand when your family's love is a sham? Stick with me. The choice I made next wasn't just about justice, it was about reclaiming my soul. And the fight ahead was one for the history books. The moment my mom, Diane Reed, admitted to forging Dad's will to hand my inheritance to Ethan, my world didn't just tremble. It shattered into a million jagged pieces. It was a humid Friday morning, June 13th, 2025, at 9:48 a.m., and I sat frozen in my Austin condo, the lawyer's letter still clutched in my hands, its words searing my soul. The loss of the Coeur Lake house, a promise from Dad now stolen by her deceit, plunged me into a storm of emotions I couldn't escape. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was a gut-wrenching blow to my trust, my identity, leaving me to grapple with fear, isolation, and a rage that threatened to consume me. Each wave of feeling was a knot tightening my despair, but also fraying the threads of guilt that had bound me to her. Let me take you into those dark, raw days where the weight of her actions tested my spirit and sparked a flicker of defiance. The panic hit first, a relentless tide that stole my breath. I stood in my kitchen, the coffee makers gurgling a mocking soundtrack, staring at my laptop as credit alerts flooded in. The lake house, my inheritance, was my financial safety net, a place I'd planned to renovate for extra income or retreat to when work got too intense. Now, with Mom's forgery, that security was gone, leaving my freelance design business vulnerable. I'd poured years into building it, late nights sketching logos, weekends meeting clients, sacrificing vacations and sleep to stand on my own. The thought of losing it all, of defaulting on loans I'd taken to expand, made my chest tighten. I paced the room, my bare feet cold on the tile, imagining clients pulling out, my reputation tanking. The knot of fear was suffocating, a vice grip that whispered I might never recover, that mom's betrayal could erase everything I'd fought for. Isolation crept in next, a cold shadow that cut me off from the world. I wanted to call someone to unload the chaos, but who could grasp this level of family treachery? My Austin crew, friends from design meetups, late-night taco runs, was my lifeline. But their families were the picture-perfect kind, with parents who sent care packages, not forged wills. I pictured their faces, wide-eyed with pity or disbelief, and shrank back. I stopped answering texts, let my inbox swell, and sat alone with the half-eaten sandwich, the city's buzz outside feeling like a taunt. Memories flooded in. Me at 21, working doubles to pay Ethan's bar tab after Dad's death, while Mom cooed over his potential. Me at 25, wiring cash for his rent, while she ignored my first big contract. I'd been proud of my strength, but now it felt like a chain they'd exploited. The knot of loneliness tightened, leaving me adrift in a city of millions with no one to anchor me. Rage roared to life, a wildfire that scorched my grief. How dare she? I stood by my desk, slamming a sketchbook shut, the sound echoing in the silence. I thought of every time I'd said yes, Ethan's debts, his car, his endless schemes, while Mom called me her safety net. I'd given my all, believing it was love, only to be stabbed in the back. I wanted to drive to Boise, barge into her house, and demand why Ethan's laziness outranked my grit. I pictured her smug smile, Ethan's careless shrug, and felt a fury that made my hands shake. I'd built this life, every client pitch, every sleepless night, every dollar saved, only for her to weaponize it. The injustice was a knot, twisting tighter, threatening to break me as I stared out at the Austin skyline, tears blurring the horizon. But rage gave way to a deeper wound, sorrow, a quiet ache that hollowed me out. This was my mom, the woman who'd taught me to bake, who'd held me at Dad's funeral, her tears mixing with mine. I saw flashes of her laughter at my childhood drawings, her soft hum as we decorated the Christmas tree, now tainted by her lie. I sank onto my couch, a photo of Dad from happier days in my hands, and sobbed, deep, shuddering cries that racked my body. I mourned the mom I'd known, the family I'd believed in, the love I'd chased for years. I'd given until it hurt, thinking it would make me enough. But it was never about me. She'd used my trust to prop up Ethan, and the loss of that bond was a death I couldn't escape. The knot of grief was heavy, leaving me raw, my condo a hollow shell despite its warmth. The days blurred into a fog of dread and exhaustion. I dragged myself to client meetings, my designs flat, my smiles forced. I'd sit in traffic, radio off, replaying Mom's words, "You're strong, you'll manage." It didn't manage. It hurt like hell. I felt trapped, my future hijacked by the woman who'd raised me. I'd check my accounts, each dip a reminder of my vulnerability, and wonder if I could ever climb out. The knot of despair was suffocating, but beneath it, a spark flickered. I thought of the girl who'd worked doubles to graduate, who'd pitched to skeptics and won, who'd built a business from nothing. She was still there, and Mom hadn't killed her. One afternoon, sketching by my window, the city's energy steadied me. I remembered a mentor's words. "You're a fighter, Olivia, because you keep going." I'd kept going then, and I could now. The knot of pain was still there, but it was fraying, revealing a resolve that burned brighter. I wasn't her pawn. I was Olivia Reed, and I'd fight, not just for the lake house, but for my worth. The betrayal had taken much, but it hadn't taken my spirit. The knot unravels here, but the storm isn't over. I was crushed, betrayed by the mom I loved, but that pain forged a strength I couldn't ignore. How do you heal when your own mother steals your future? How do you rise when trust is gone? Stick with me. The decision I made next wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming my power, and the battle ahead was one for the ages. The weight of my mom's betrayal, forging Dad's will to hand my inheritance to Ethan, pressed down on me like a storm cloud. As I sat in my Austin condo, the clock ticking past 10:15 a.m. on that fateful Friday, June 13th, 2025. The loss of the Coeur d'Alene Lake House, the sting of her casual admission, and the isolation that followed had left me raw, but something inside me refused to break. I couldn't let Diane Reed's deception steal my future. That morning, with the city's hum filtering through the window, I resolved to challenge the will legally, to reclaim what was mine. The decision was a knot of fear and fury tightening in my chest, but it also began to fray the chains of guilt that had held me to her. Let me take you into those pivotal hours where I gathered my courage, sought help, and stood firm against her pressure, setting the stage for a battle that would define me. The despair from the past few days had me pacing my living room, my sketch pad abandoned, my mind a whirlwind of hurt and helplessness. I'd lost sleep, replaying Mom's words, "You're strong, you'll manage," and Ethan's smug dismissal, my financial security teetering on the edge. The lake house, a haven Dad promised me, was slipping away, threatening the stability of my freelance design business. I'd poured my soul into it, late nights perfecting logos, weekends pitching to clients, sacrificing so much to stand on my own. The thought of losing it all to her scheme made my stomach churn. But as I stood there, the Austin skyline, a faint glow beyond the glass, a spark flickered. I thought of the girl who'd worked 3 jobs through college, waitressing, tutoring, cashiering, to earn her degree, who turned rejection into a thriving career. She was still in me, and Mom hadn't crushed her. The knot of despair loosened, giving way to a resolve that felt like a lifeline. I grabbed my laptop, my hands unsteady but determined, and started searching for a way out. Estate lawyer Boise popped into my browser, and I scrolled through options, my heart pounding. I needed someone who could cut through Mom's lies, someone who'd fight for me. That's when I found Marcus Reed, a Boise-based estate law expert with a track record of exposing fraud. His website was blunt, no fluff, just case studies of families torn apart and victories reclaimed. "We fight for what's yours," it read, and those words hit like a rallying cry. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over his number. What if he thought I was overreacting? What if this was too big to win? But then I remembered Mom's cold justification. It was for the family, and Ethan's arrogance. I dialed, my voice shaky but firm. My mom forged my dad's will to give my brother everything. I need help. Marcus's response was steady, confident. "That's fraud, Olivia. Come to my office Monday." His assurance was an anchor, pulling me from the abyss. Monday morning, I drove to Boise, the 5-hour trip a blur of nerves and resolve. Marcus's office was a modest suite, all wood and files, a stark contrast to the chaos in my head. He was in his 50s, with a no-nonsense demeanor and a handshake that meant business. I sat across from him, the forged will letter in my hands, and spilled the story. Mom's favoritism, the altered will, her admission. He listened, his pen tapping a rhythm, then leaned in. "This is a clear case of fraud," he said. "We can challenge it, but you'll need evidence, letters, documents, anything showing her intent." Evidence. The word was a challenge, a spark to action. I'd spent years avoiding confrontation, saying yes to keep the peace, but now I was done. The knot of fear tightened, but it was laced with a fire I hadn't felt before. "I'll get it," I said, my voice steady. Back in Austin, I turned my spare room into a war zone, spreading papers across a folding table. I dug through old emails, finding ones where Mom asked for favors that now screamed manipulation. My pulse jumped when I uncovered a text from her dated months ago. "Olivia won't mind. Ethan needs this." The words were a dagger, proof of her plan. I sifted through Dad's old letters, finding one where he'd written, "The lake house is Olivia's," a promise she'd erased. I called a nurse from Dad's final days who confirmed Mom had been secretive about his papers. Each piece was a jolt, anger at her audacity, pain at her betrayal. The knot of their deceit was unraveling, replaced by a strength I was just beginning to tap. The pressure to back down was relentless. Mom called, her voice a mix of tears and guilt. "Olivia, you're tearing us apart. Think of Ethan," she pleaded. Ethan texted, "Let it go, Liv. It's not worth it." Their words tugged at old wounds. I'd been the reliable one, the daughter who held the family together. Could I really drag Mom to court? The guilt was a knot, tight and heavy, but Marcus's voice cut through. "She broke the law, Olivia. You're not the villain." His words were a shield, bolstering my resolve. I wasn't fighting for spite. I was fighting for my legacy, for the life I'd earned. The stakes loomed large. Marcus warned of a courtroom showdown in Boise, where I had faced Mom and Ethan, their lies laid bare. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Diane, who tucked me in as a kid, now my adversary. I imagined her teary defense, Ethan's casual shrug, and felt a mix of dread and defiance. I'd chased her love for years, giving until it hurt. But she'd seen me as a resource, not a daughter. That truth was a knot, raw and painful, but it was fraying, revealing a power I'd overlooked. I looked at my evidence, texts, letters, witness accounts, and felt a surge of clarity. They'd misjudged me, and that was their downfall. That evening, sipping tea in a quiet Austin cafe, the city's energy steadied me. I thought of every time I'd pushed through, college rejections, client no-shows, Dad's death, and knew I could push through this. The knot of fear was still there, but it was giving way to a fire that burned brighter with each step. I wasn't her crutch anymore. I was Olivia Reed, ready to fight, not just for the lake house, but for my worth. Marcus's plan was clear. We demand the will's invalidation and hold Diane accountable. The road was daunting, but I was walking it, step by determined step. The knot unravels here, but the war's just begun. I was betrayed, my trust shattered by the mom I loved, but that pain forged a resolve I couldn't ignore. How do you face a mother who stole your future? How do you rise when everything's at stake? Stick with me. The battle I waged next wasn't just about justice. It was about reclaiming my power, and the outcome was one they never saw coming. The Boise Federal Courthouse stood like a sentinel against the overcast sky as I stepped out of my rental car that crisp Tuesday morning, June 17, 2025, at 9:53 a.m. The sting of my mom's betrayal, forging Dad's will to gift my inheritance to Ethan, had propelled me to this moment, a courtroom showdown where I'd face her and my brother. With Marcus Reed, my lawyer, at my side, I felt a swirl of dread and determination, my pulse quickening with each step toward the heavy doors. This wasn't a family chat. It was a battlefield, a knot of anxiety and resolve tightening in my chest as I prepared to confront the ones who'd raised me. Every move was a thread, unraveling their deception and weaving my strength tighter. Let me pull you into that electric, defining day where truth collided with lies and the stakes hung by a fragile thread. The courtroom was a stark stage, gleaming wood benches, a towering ceiling, and a silence that buzzed with tension. I settled at the plaintiff's table, my hands clutching a folder brimming with evidence. Mom's damning text, Dad's heartfelt letters, the nurse's affidavit from his final days. Across the room, Diane Reed and Ethan sat like statues, their faces a mask of strained calm. Mom's eyes flickered nervously, dodging mine, while Ethan slumped, his usual swagger muted. My heart thumped wildly, a blend of nerves and grit, as Marcus leaned close. "You've got the upper hand," he whispered, his voice a steadying force. The judge, a lean man with a piercing stare, called the session to order with a gavel's sharp crack, and the knot in my throat tightened. This was the line in the sand. Victory or ruin, it all came down to now. Marcus rose, his presence commanding the space as he laid bare the case. He presented the forged will, my signature a sloppy counterfeit, and projected Mom's text on the screen. "Olivia won't mind. Ethan needs this." The words landed like a thunderclap, and I felt a jolt of validation surge through me. He called the nurse to the stand, her voice clear as she recounted Mom's secretive handling of Dad's documents in his last weeks. Her testimony a brick in our wall. Marcus stacked bank statements showing Ethan's extravagant spending, new cars, lavish trips, funded by Mom's ploy. His argument a precise blade slicing through their narrative. I watched the judge, his face a mask of stone, and held my breath. Would he pierce through her facade? The knot of doubt twisted, my fingers whitening on the folder as I braced for their counterattack. Their lawyer stood, and my blood simmered with anticipation. He spun a tale of maternal devotion gone astray, insisting Diane acted to safeguard Ethan's future after Dad's passing. Mom dabbed her eyes with a tissue, a performance that turned my stomach, while Ethan nodded, playing the wronged son. The lawyer's voice turned venomous as he pointed at me. Olivia's flourishing in Austin. She's ripping this family apart with her selfishness. Where's her heart? Heart? The word was a sucker punch. I'd bankrolled Ethan's debts, shouldered his failures, given until I was drained, and they dared call me selfish? My nails dug into my palms, rage flaring like a wildfire. But Marcus's reassuring nod kept me anchored. The knot of fury coiled tighter, but I gripped the truth, my lifeline against their spin. When I took the stand, my knees quaked, but my voice rang clear. I traced my journey, working 3 jobs through college, building a design empire from scratch, sacrificing for a family that betrayed me. She didn't just forge my name, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. She stole Dad's promise, my stability, and didn't care. My words faltered, but I pressed on, laying bare years of her favoritism, Ethan's handouts, my overlooked triumphs. Marcus's closing was a thunderbolt, his voice rising as he drove home the text evidence. This wasn't a slip-up. It was a calculated heist, and Olivia deserves her day. I caught Mom's fleeting panic, Ethan's restless shift, and felt a bittersweet rush. They were my kin, but they'd chosen this fight. The wait for the judge's ruling stretched into an agonizing pause. My heart pounded, my mind spinning with possibilities. Had I made my case strong enough? Would the truth outweigh their crocodile tears? Mom sat rigid, her composure unraveling, while Ethan stared at the floor, avoiding my gaze. The room was still, the air thick with expectancy, and I gripped the table, torn between hope and terror. This wasn't just about the lake house. It was about proving I wasn't her puppet. The knot of tension was a vice, but it was loosening, revealing a strength honed by every sacrifice. I'd stood my ground, and that was a win in itself. The knot unravels here, but the verdict looms large. I faced my mom and brother, their fabrications exposed, but the toll was a rift I couldn't ignore. How do you stare down a mother who's deceived you? How do you press on when family turns foe? Stick with me. The judge's ruling was about to turn the tide, and the aftermath was a shock that reshaped my reality. The Boise Federal Courthouse felt like a pressure cooker as I sat at the plaintiff's table that crisp Wednesday afternoon, June 18, 2025, at 2:17 p.m. The legal battle against my mom, Diane Reed, and my brother Ethan over Dad's forged will had reached its peak, and every nerve in my body buzzed with anticipation. My mom's deception, altering the will to steal my inheritance and hand it to Ethan, had brought me to this moment where the judge's ruling would decide my fate. With Marcus Reed, my lawyer, I felt a tangle of hope and dread, a knot tightening in my chest as the air grew thick with tension. This wasn't just about reclaiming the Coeur d'Alene Lake House. It was about shattering the chains of her betrayal and proving my worth. Each second stretched into eternity, a thread fraying her lies and weaving my redemption. Let me take you into that electrifying climax where justice hung in the balance and the outcome reshaped my world. The courtroom was a hushed arena, polished wood gleaming under the fluorescent lights, a high ceiling amplifying the silence, and the faint scratch of the judge's pen the only sound. I clutched the edge of the table, my folder of evidence, Mom's texts, Dad's letters, the nurse's testimony, resting beside me like a shield. Across the room, Diane and Ethan sat rigid, their faces etched with strain. Mom's eyes, usually so commanding, darted nervously, while Ethan's slouch betrayed a flicker of unease. My heart thundered, a mix of exhaustion and anticipation as Marcus gave me a reassuring nod. The judge, a stern figure with a lined face, adjusted his glasses and called for order. His gavel's echo, a sharp jolt that tightened the knot in my throat. This was the pinnacle, my life, my legacy, teetering on his words. He began, his voice steady and deliberate. "The evidence presented is compelling," he said, pausing to scan his notes. My breath caught as he continued. "The will in question, altered post-mortem, contains a forged signature of Olivia Reed, rendering it invalid." A wave of relief crashed over me, so intense I gripped the table to steady myself. My name was cleared, the lake house mine again, the financial burden lifted from my shoulders. But the judge wasn't finished. "Diane Reed's actions constitute fraud and undue influence," he declared. "The estate is to be restored to its original distribution, and this matter is referred for criminal investigation." The room gasped, a ripple of shock that mirrored my own. I glanced at Mom, her face drained, her tissue crumpled in her fist, and Ethan, his jaw slack, realization dawning. The knot of dread unraveled, replaced by a bittersweet surge of triumph. The victory was a rush, but it carried a stink. Marcus squeezed my hand, murmuring, "You did it." And I felt a swell of pride. I'd fought and I'd won. Yet, across the room, Mom's composure shattered, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of her actions finally hit. Ethan stared at the floor, his usual bravado gone, and for a moment, I saw the family I'd lost. The mom who'd baked my birthday cakes, the brother I'd covered for. A pang of sorrow stabbed me, a reminder of the love I'd once believed in. But it faded fast. They'd chosen this path, forging my name, banking on my silence, using Dad's memory as a shield. This wasn't just justice, it was accountability, a line I'd drawn with every piece of evidence. The knot of guilt, years of feeling I wasn't enough, dissolved, leaving me lighter, freer than I'd felt in months. Leaving the courthouse, the cool air bit my cheeks, but I walked with a new stride. Marcus warned the criminal probe could drag on, that Mom might face charges, maybe even jail time. Part of me wanted her to pay, to feel the sting of her choices, but another part just craved peace, a clean break from her shadow. I thought of Ethan, likely oblivious in some flashy car she'd bought him, and felt a flicker of pity. Not for him, but for the family dynamic that had warped us. The knot of their betrayal was gone, replaced by a clarity that felt like wings. I'd stood up, not just for the lake house, but for my worth, and that victory was mine to keep. The drive back to Austin was a blur of reflection. The city's energy greeted me, street musicians strumming, food trucks sizzling, reminding me of the life I'd built. My friends, my design crew were waiting with texts and calls, their support a lifeline I hadn't fully leaned on before. I pulled over at a park, the sun dipping low, and let the moment sink in. The lake house was mine, a place to heal, to create, to reclaim Dad's promise. But the cost was steep. Mom and Ethan were strangers now, their bond severed by her greed. The knot of loss lingered, a faint ache, but it was fading, giving way to a resolve forged in fire. I wasn't defined by their actions anymore. I was defined by my fight. Back in my office the next day, the hum of creativity returned. Clients praised a new logo I'd finalized, and I felt a surge of purpose. The lake house wasn't just property, it was my victory, a symbol of the strength I'd uncovered. I thought of Dad, his quiet pride, and knew he'd be proud of this stand. The knot of the past was untying, leaving space for a future I'd shape. My friends planned a celebration, their excitement infectious, and I realized I wasn't alone. My chosen family was there, lifting me up. The legal win was a cornerstone, but the real triumph was in letting go, in choosing myself over their lies. The knot is gone, but the journey isn't over. I'd faced my mom and brother, their deception dismantled, and won my life back, but the scars remained. How do you heal when a mother's love turns to betrayal? How do you thrive with a family lost? Stick with me. The next chapter wasn't just about recovery, it was about rising, and the impact it had was beyond anything I expected. The judge's ruling on that fateful June 18, 2025 still echoed in my mind as I drove back to Austin from Boise, the road stretching ahead like a lifeline on Friday, June 20, 2025 at 11:32 a.m. The victory over my mom, Diane Reed, and her forged will had restored my inheritance, the Coeur Lake House, but the cost was a family torn apart. Sitting in my car, the hum of the engine a steady beat, I reflected on the emotional wreckage she'd left behind. Rebuilding wasn't just about reclaiming property, it was about letting go of the toxic ties that had bound me and forging a new path with my own strength. Each mile was a knot untying, releasing the pain and weaving a future I could finally call mine. Let me take you into those transformative days where I pieced myself back together and found peace beyond her betrayal. The first step was cutting the cord with mom. I blocked her number that afternoon, her tearful voicemails, "Olivia, you're breaking my heart," fading into static. They no longer stung. They were echoes of a love I'd outgrown, a manipulation I refused to feed. Ethan's texts begging me to let it go for family followed, but I silenced them too. His voice a ghost of the brother I'd once shielded. Instead, I turned to my Austin crew, friends from design meetups, late-night taco runs, who rallied around me. That Saturday, June 21, at a cozy diner on South Congress, they piled fries on my plate, their laughter a balm to my raw nerves. "You're a badass, Liv," one said, and I felt the first crack of a smile since the ordeal began. Their support was a lifeline, a chosen family that lifted me where blood had failed. Therapy became my sanctuary. On Monday, June 23, I walked into a sleek office downtown, the therapist's calm voice a contrast to the storm in my head. "You don't owe her your pain," she said, her words sinking deep. We unpacked years of guilt, feeling I wasn't enough, bending to mom's demands, and I began to let it go. Each session, held twice a week, peeled back layers of shame, replacing them with a quiet strength. I journaled late nights, scribbling memories of Dad's gentle pride, using his memory to fuel my healing. The knot of obligation loosened, and I started to breathe easier. My condo was space of peace rather than a reminder of loss. My career surged forward, a beacon in the chaos. I threw myself into design work, finalizing a logo for a tech startup that landed me a high-profile contract by July 1. The glass-walled office buzzed with my energy, colleagues nodding at my renewed focus. The lake house, now legally mine, became a project. I hired a local crew to restore its dock, envisioning a retreat for my business retreats. The inheritance wasn't just money, it was a chance to grow, to turn pain into profit. I invested in new equipment, expanding my studio space, and watched my client list swell. Each success was a brick in my rebuilt life, a testament to my grit, and the knot of insecurity unraveled further. Letting go of Mom and Ethan was a slow burn. Memories flickered, her baking cookies, Ethan's childhood pranks, but I let them drift, choosing peace over pain. I avoided Boise, focusing on Austin's vibrancy, where street musicians and food trucks filled my weekends. A call from a cousin, hinting at Mom's regret, tempted me to reconnect, but I hung up, firm in my boundaries. The lake house visits, starting July 15, became my healing ground. Fishing off the dock, sketching new designs, the waters ripple a soothing rhythm. The knot of loss lingered, a faint ache for the family I'd known, but it faded as friends joined me there, their laughter echoing Dad's memory. Rebuilding reshaped me. I hosted a design workshop at the lake house on August 1st, my business thriving, my confidence soaring. Colleagues marveled at my turnaround, and I felt a pride untainted by her shadow. Therapy sessions evolved into planning my future, maybe a mentorship program inspired by my fight. The knot of the past was gone, replaced by a life I'd forged. My friends planned a celebration for August 10th, their excitement a mirror to my joy, and I realized my true family was the one I'd built. The knot is untied, but the story evolves. I'd let go of a toxic past, but what came next? How do you thrive when family ties are severed? How do you inspire others with your scars? Stick with me. The next phase wasn't just about healing, it was about empowering, and the ripple effect was bigger than I dreamed. It's a crisp Friday morning, June 13, 2025, 10:03 a.m. here in Austin, and I'm standing on the deck of my newly restored Coeur lake house, the water shimmering under the summer sun. The battle against my mom, Diane Reed, and her forged will that handed my inheritance to Ethan feels like a distant storm I've weathered. I fought tooth and nail, reclaimed what was mine, and turned the pain into a powerhouse of a life. Freelance design business booming, friends who've got my back, and a spirit that refuses to break. This journey from betrayal to triumph isn't just my story, it's a wake up call, a knot of despair unraveled into a roar of empowerment. I'm tying it all together right now, not with regret, but with a fire to inspire you. Let me pull you into this moment where I shared the lesson that changed me and invite you to join this fight for your own freedom, because this is where we rise together. Looking back, the knots that held me were brutal. Years of being mom's safety net, funding Ethan's flops, chasing her love like it was a prize I could win. That forged will, uncovered in the dead of night, was a gut punch that nearly knocked me out. Panic, isolation, rage crashing over me like a tidal wave. But I clawed my way up, hiring Marcus Reed to dismantle her lies, facing her and Ethan in that Boise courtroom, and winning back the lake house with a judge's gavel. The victory was sweet, but the cost, losing my family, left scars. I cut ties, leaned on my Austin crew, and rebuilt with therapy that peeled away guilt, a promotion that proved my worth, and this lake house that's now my sanctuary. Standing here, the breeze on my face, I realize the real win isn't the property. It's knowing my value isn't hers to define. That's the fire I want to pass to you. Think about your own battles. Have you ever been squeezed dry by family, forced to carry their weight while your dreams got sidelined? Maybe a parent played favorites, a sibling took credit, or someone you trusted turned the knife. I've been there, drowning in the pressure to be the good one, only to find out it was a setup. But here's the kicker. You don't have to stay stuck. Your worth isn't tied to their approval, and you can break free. Set boundaries, stand up, and take charge of your story. I fought for my future, and every step, every late night design session, every tear shed, every dollar saved was worth it to stand here today. You've got that same fight in you. Whether it's a family secret, a betrayal that blindsided you, or a moment you had to say, enough, you can turn it into your power. The lake house behind me isn't just a win. It's proof that you can rise from the ashes of their mess. Let's make this personal right now. Have you faced a family drama that rocked your world? Maybe a parent's lie, a sibling's scheme, or a moment you had to draw a line? Spill it in the comments below. I'm reading every word, and we're in this together. Your story could be the spark someone else needs to break free, so don't hold back. If this roller coaster of a tale hit you hard, smash that like button and share it with anyone who needs a boost to fight their own battles. Hit subscribe and tap the bell. More jaw-dropping family drama is coming your way, and you won't want to miss a second. Check out these bangers next. Sibling revenge that shocked everyone, and mom's hidden secret exposed. Links are down below, and trust me, they're wild rides. This isn't just about me, it's about us. You're enough, and you deserve a life that's yours, not someone else's to steal. The water laps at the shore behind me, a rhythm of resilience, and I'm rooting for you to find your own beat. Keep pushing, keep rising. Let's flood the comments with your victories and turn this into a movement. Thanks for riding this wave with me. Austin's got my back, and I'll catch you in the next one with more stories to fuel your fire.